So when is the right time to hire a barber? If you're not asking yourself this question, then I think you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And I was just thinking about this yesterday, which is why I decided to make this video. This was not the video I had planned for today. We're in 2025 now. So if I could just erase everything I learned in 2024 except for one lesson, it would be this. I figured out when is the right time to hire, because I was told, which it wasn't bad advice, but you want to wait until you're fully booked in order to hire a barber, which makes absolutely perfect sense. But the problem with doing that in reality, right, is that what if you lose a barber and you're already fully booked? Now you're like double screwed, right? So I think that hiring the right barber at the right time is one of the most important things you can learn as a barbershop owner, especially if you are paying your people on a commission or hourly basis, especially hourly, because there's a guaranteed cost when you're bringing on this person. And there's not necessarily going to be a guaranteed increase in revenue. Like, you have the potential to make more with that extra hours to sell on the schedule, but you don't necessarily guarantee that you're going to make more. So in this video, I'm just going to cover two ways. Both of them are super simple that you can use to figure out just kind of a rough guide of when is the right time to hire. And if you can really figure this number out and actually execute on this stuff in this video, which is probably going to be a short video, it will make you more money, guaranteed. So let's get right into it, because I want to be respectful of you guys' time. So this is our agenda for today. When is the right time to hire a barber? We're going to cover two methods. So the first one is this is the one I'm currently using, which you're going to be this is going to involve a system or tracking this manually, but it's basically called utilization, or sometimes it might be called, or I might refer to it as productivity. Barbers refer to this as being booked up, quote unquotes, right? But this basically, let me define what this means, and then we'll talk about how to use this number. Utilization or productivity basically means you have this many hours available for clients to book. How many of those hours were actually booked? So for example, if you have 100 hours available to book this week and 50 of those hours were booked, you would be 50% booked. I would consider that really slow, right? On the other side of that, if you were 90% booked, then 90 of those 100 hours would be booked, and that would be considered very busy. So then the natural question that you probably have is in your head, what is the right number to hire that? We're going to get into that. But I think that on social media, when a lot of barbers are saying they're booked, this is basically what they mean. Like, relative to the number of hours they have available, there is a high percentage of those hours that are booked, meaning they don't have a lot of space left for more appointments on their schedule, which is great. That's what you want as a barber and as a barbershop owner. The challenge is there is such a thing as being too busy. So as barbershop owners, we actually need to manage that number, and which is the whole point of this video. And when it hits a certain point, it's time to hire, right? Because I think there is such a thing as being too busy. If you hire too late, then you end up causing problems in the business. Like, you're always going to have problems in the barbershop. You're just going to have good problems and bad problems. You're going to have good stress. You're going to have bad stress. It's going to be stressful if you don't have enough clients coming in. It's also going to be stressful if you have too many clients coming in and not enough barbers. So let's talk about the right time. If you're tracking utilization, which the software I use, if you're wondering, is called Zenoti, Zenoti, right? It tracks this automatically. So I don't even have to manually do this. If your software doesn't track it, then you can manually look it up. But otherwise, like, you need to know what this number is. If you don't, there's another method I'm going to cover, which is the second one. But utilization, it basically tells you how busy you are. So the first thing I would say is, if you are less than 60% booked, I would say. So 60%, let's say 65. So if you're 65% or less, I would say that you are really slow. That is a really slow barbershop, that you're having a really slow day, a slow week, right? If that's the case, there's only two ways you can solve that, right? Because it means relative to the number of hours you have available, there's not a lot of appointments being booked. So you can either reduce the number of hours available. So how do you do that? You send barbers home, make them take a longer lunch break. You shorten the hours of the shop. You let barbers go. I mean, if you don't need the help and you're paying them hourly, you're burning money, right? Or you change schedules around, right? Maybe you don't need them on this day anymore, but you move them to this day. So those are just a few of the tactics that we use to like influence this number. Like this is a number you can influence how booked you are, right? It's not like a passive thing, right? So just because you have somebody on the schedule today doesn't mean they have to be there all day. Like send them home for the day, put them on the schedule tomorrow when you think you'll need them, right? So, but if you're 65% or less booked, I would consider that really slow, right? I would say that's between 65 to 75% would be like kind of the inconsistent. That's the inconsistency zone. So if you're between 65 and 75% booked, I would consider that kind of inconsistent. When you're in that range, that basically means some days you're fully booked. And some days it's like, why am I even here? And it kind of goes back and forth like that. You have these big swings in the business. So that's kind of like the awkward stage of growing a shop is when you're in that zone. So the way you can kind of fix that is you can start to shift appointments. This is where rebooking becomes really important. You can start to shift people like, hey, instead of coming in all on Friday and Saturday, do you guys want to come in on Tuesday or Wednesday instead? You know, and then you start picking when the clients come back by booking their next appointment for them. You know, of course, you got to make sure that they're good with it and it works with their schedule, but you don't have to wait until all the people come in on Friday and Saturday. You could even call those people that are booked on Friday and Saturday and see if they'd rather come in on today instead, right? That's one of the things that we do during downtime. We try to move appointments because one of the easiest ways to fill your schedule today, if you're having a slow day, is just to reach out to the people that are already booked in the future and just see if they want to come in today instead. Like they're already booked. You don't have to worry about getting new clients. You don't have to do anything crazy. Like they're already booked. They're already planning on coming to see you. Just see if they want to come in today instead. And if they don't, fine. But at least some people will. If you call 20 people, probably one of them is going to say, yes, yeah, I'll come in today instead, you know, and then you just freed up a spot for a busy day. And now you have one more appointment on your schedule for a slow day. So there's really no downside to doing this. So if you're in the 65 to 75% range, I would consider that inconsistent. Like it's not a good place to be, right? I mean, it's better than slow, but it's you want to get beyond this, right? And then I would say for us, now, and this is where the number, like the threshold, is going to be very individual to your business. But for me, I found for our shop, 75% plus booked is pretty busy. It's all, you can also consider this, like I've thought about it this way too. It's like if you're 65% or less booked, you're consistently slow, right? It's pretty predictable that pretty much every day except for maybe Saturday is going to be slow, right? Here, very inconsistent. But when you get beyond 75% plus booked, especially when you get into the 85% range, you're consistently busy now, right? From what I've seen in my shop, right? Every shop's different, but from what I've seen, if you're 75 to 80% plus booked, you're consistently busy. And that means that it may be time to start thinking about hiring a barber. That's what we do. So I was told that you want to wait till 85% to hire. I did the math, it actually makes sense for us to hire at 75% because me personally, I'm in growth mode, right? I'm trying to grow this barbershop. We have 2 locations, just for context. We're trying to get to 3 and beyond. So I don't want my business to cap, right? I don't want hiring barbers to be the thing that's holding us back. So I always want to have a little bit of air in the books, as Ivan Zoot says, right? I want to have a little bit of time so that clients can book last minute if they want, right? They can come in today if they want. That's because new clients usually aren't looking to book in advance. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times walk-ins, new clients, they're looking to come in today, right? So if you are letting yourself get 100% booked, that's great, you're busy, but it's going to be tough to grow because you're going to be like turning away a lot of people, right? So I would say, for me, I hire at 75% booked. Now, if you don't track this stuff, because not a lot of people do, I get it, then I would say the safest bet would be 80% or 85% plus, right? So if you're in that range, probably for sure, no matter what your numbers are, probably makes sense to hire, right? Because I can tell you that at 85%, I would say 85% plus, I would consider that too busy, right? Because now you're starting to cause stress on the business. What you're going to start frustrating clients because they're trying to book and they can't. They got to wait like a whole week, 2 weeks, maybe months to book their appointment. People are calling or walking in. They can't get in with you, right? So this is not a good place to be long term. Like, everybody's busy, everybody's making money. That's awesome, but it causes problems too. The phone's ringing off the hook. Barbers are getting annoyed because they're having to stop, answer the phone, right? Walk-ins are coming in. Barber has to stop, go see if they can help the walk-in, and then just to tell them like, sorry, we can't help you out. So there's really like, there's a sweet spot, I think, right? And I like to keep it between 75 to 80% booked. If it gets above that, definitely time to hire, right? So I would say, if you don't track this stuff, if you don't know what your number is, then it's a pretty safe bet that if you get to 85% booked, probably time to hire, right? And here's a big lesson I learned with this. Don't go off just 1 month, right? Because you could have one busy month and then the next month dies, right? I'm recording this in January now, so December is typically a pretty busy time. If you just went off December's numbers, then you might be like, oh, it's time to hire, but like, oh, well, we're in a new month now. So you want to look at like probably at least 2 to 3 months. Like, it's here for like a good 2 to 3 months before you start hiring, right? And I have a whole course that I'm working on about hiring, and the whole idea, one of the main ideas of the course, is never stop looking, right? And have a list of people that you can call for when you are hiring. I talk about how to generate that list in the course, but basically, when it's time, you have people available, and figuring out the right time is the hard part. But you want to be sure that you need help, and that's by waiting 2 to 3 months and seeing like, okay, we're at 75% booked pretty consistently or more. That's a pretty good indication that you didn't just have a good month. Like, you're in a busy season, or you're just getting busier as a shop, which is great. And you can grow even more if you start to hire people. So that's the first method. Utilization, tracking your utilization, how busy you are as a barber or as a barbershop. Obviously, as a barbershop, you want to do this on the location level, right? You're looking at the whole team. How busy is the whole team, right? If you have multiple locations, how busy is that location, right? Because sometimes one location doesn't need help, but the other one does. And the cool thing about having multiple locations as a barbershop owner is maybe one location doesn't need the help full time, or maybe both locations don't need the help full time, but you can hire a barber and split them between the two. So like, hey, we need you over here these 2 days, we need you over here these 2 or 3 days. And that way both locations can kind of share the load and share the risk of hiring a new barber, because like, especially if you're paying them hourly, there is a cost associated for hiring every single person that comes to your door. Okay, so the second method when it comes to when is the right time to hire a barber for your barbershop is old school. It's basically tally marks, right? Or tracking. Let me just actually put this as a tracking turnaways. So this is actually the method that I started with before I switched to a system, Zenati, that tracks utilization. So I don't have to do this anymore, because there's definitely some imperfections for doing it this method, which I'll cover in a second. But basically, this is literally all you have to do. Get a piece of paper like this, right? And then you just, anytime somebody walks in and you have to turn them away because you're too busy, you do a tally mark. Anytime somebody calls and you say, and trying to get an appointment for today, or asking about walking in for today, and you have to turn them away, tally mark, right? And then when it gets to, I would say like 10 a day, and again, we're trying to be like consistent, not just like one day, but like for a consistent amount of time. So I would say you make a tally mark for every turn away. And then when it gets to like 10 plus a day, it's time to hire, right? Time to because 10 clients a day is definitely enough clients to keep one barber busy, right? So that's how we actually started doing it. Before we started tracking utilization, we literally just did a tally mark every single time somebody walked in and we had to turn them away because we were too busy, or every time somebody called because we were too busy, that also counted, right? And so when it got to like 10 plus a day, that to me was a sign that it was time to hire. Now we track utilization, our software does, but if you don't have that ability, you can literally just old school piece of paper and a pen track tally marks every time you turn somebody away. The only thing that this is not going to show you is how many people went to your website if you have a booking software that wanted to book an appointment for today and couldn't find a time and ended up not booking an appointment. So that's the only thing that you're not going to be able to get with this method. So actually, it's probably higher than as far as the turnaways go than what you're going to have on your piece of paper, right? Assuming the barbers are doing this every time. But yeah, so just keep that in mind that whatever's on your piece of paper is probably actually higher if you're accounting for the fact that the people that went to your site to go book an appointment didn't see a spot and ended up not booking, right? And when they went somewhere else instead. So these are two methods that you can use to figure out when is the right time to hire barbers. This is definitely going to be the more accurate way tracking utilization. But if you don't have a system that can do that, then I would just literally just go old school and just do tally marks every time you turn somebody away. And when it gets to like 10 plus a day, time to hire. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. That was super helpful for me. Again, that was the biggest lesson I think I learned in 2024, the right time to hire. And if you have a commission or hourly based shop, you need to know this, right? It's going to be the thing that helps get you to the next level. I think if you can really, really figure this out. So hopefully that helped you guys. See you in the next one.